Hi, I know that we are all in a new world where we are doing all kinds of things that are different. And one of those is leading virtual teams. And so today I wanted to come to you and talk about how what we've learned from running a virtual team for the past 6 years. At the most people, I don't even know if folks always know that at the UIA we have been a virtual from day one. And so just generally, we think that talent should not be limited by geography. And as a result, we've had to create our own kind of sense of culture from the beginning and figure out how to take care of each other in a virtual way, how to live across multiple time zones, how to do all of the stuff that you need to do in terms of generating new ideas and solving problems when you can't get together and whiteboard. And so I am hoping that today I can talk to you about a few things that we've learned, and my hope is that they serve you, but I also just generally want to start a conversation where you will hopefully contribute the stuff that is working for you today. Because as you will soon learn, and you most likely already have, there is no perfect in this world, and you are just going to figure it out. And there's going to be stuff that works for you sometimes and doesn't work for you others. And flexibility is going to be the name of the game. So the first thing I have observed after the past 6 years of leading teams, so just so you know, our teams are across the country in terms of we have folks in Florida, we have folks in Ohio, we have folks in Arizona, and I am in Portland, Oregon. Typically, what I used to tell people was, I'm wherever I am, like the UIA is wherever you are. And generally that Portland was just an airport that I flew out of because I didn't always work here. But I did operate out of a WeWork. Now I am standing to you live in my kitchen, coming to you live from my kitchen. And so I obviously all of us are needing to adapt in that moment. So, but just generally, we deal with folks who are across multiple time zones. And so it's likely that might be true for some of you. And for those of you who always had national teams, it's perhaps more the folks who are local that we have to worry about and try and figure out new ways to check in and take care of them. So the first thing I was going to suggest is figuring out new daily rituals to serve your team. So this can be things like I'm seeing quite a few morning stand-up meetings, 15-minute check-in, morning coffee with coworkers. We've been doing either a morning or an evening kind of happy hour kind of concept where we just kind of check in on each other. I don't think there is a hard and fast rule, but you are going to need new ways to check in on people that used to happen when you were able to see them physically, when you were able, create the water cooler that that provided a little bit of the glue and the way for people to reach out to each other and connect, especially right now where people are going through a really traumatic experience together, but we need to create space for them to talk about it. So I would just say that if you're going to do those daily rituals, don't make it about work. So I think that starting, and I'll flag this later, one thing that I think is really useful is as a prompt, what is helping you? Here's what's helping me. That is a more productive and positive way to start this conversation rather than merely passing anxiety between each other about here's what I read that's freaking me out today. So I think you really have to just kind of manage the mental health of yourself and others in this moment. So create the rituals that will allow you to do that. Second, create new ways to connect with each other. So this week we started a team Snapchat. And while I had learned how to use Snapchat and have used it for years because of Dr. Derek Tillman Kelly, who is our director of network engagement and the fellows program, he had taught me, and I've used it for years. But now we have a team Snapchat channel, and it's called Team Everybody, and we check in about cheering each other on if we did our morning workout, because we're trying to encourage each other to have healthy practices to cultivate endorphins in the midst of everything that's going on. Or if it's just sending a funny meme or, it just makes things a little bit more playful. And you can also do video calls in there, by the way. And while you are doing your team video call, which we have, everyone can be wearing a weird filter. And this all seems like, why are you doing this for work? Well, because right now it's pretty hard to get people into a creative space. And to solve problems, you need to have a degree of creativity. And it's very challenging when people are in scarcity and fear. So you have to find a way to help people kind of raise up out of the current situation. So find new ways, whatever it looks like for you. It might be Slack, Asana, whatever. I would also add that, adapt, be sensitive to the technology abilities of everyone. And that doesn't mean that you have to limit yourself to just a Google Doc and email and Zoom, which is fine. Those are predominantly what we've used. You have to find ways to bring folks along. So earlier, I think last week, we brought Chris from our team, our director of operations and finance. We got him to join us on Snapchat, and he's now like fully using memes, creating all kinds of fun stuff. And he had never done that before. So just give folks a chance and help bring them along. Don't just do it in a way that's exclusive. I also want to encourage you to find ways to check in with people individually. So you as a leader might have the kinds of meetings that were already set on your schedule. And you probably as a leader didn't plan that you were going to need to have a different kind of schedule because you're going to be going through something like this. So take a step back and take a look at what are the kinds of conversations that I need to be having, and we can talk about that more. But the other piece is there are people who are not typically in your meetings that you need to be checking in with. So I'm trying to do I always call it an appropriate shoulder touch through the internet, where I'm like, hey, how are you? Just checking in on folks, making sure that they have someone they can talk to, and just making sure you have a sense of the mental health of your team. Again, in the midst of a crisis, this is super important. People cannot perform their best. People are not able to, if people feel unsafe, it's very challenging for them to do the kinds of things that we frankly are going to be called to do right now, which is be creative, solve challenging new problems, and do things they've never done before. So as much as possible, just making sure that you go outside your normal schedule and seek out the people on your team who you haven't always had one-on-ones with, and maybe you don't have time for one-on-ones. What I do is I either snap or send a short text, or I send an Instagram story message, whatever you need to do. It might just be an email, just say, hey, how are you? But I do think that, as much as people are discovering Zoom and they're having hard times with it, we've always found it's wonderful. And we have a very close team. We are very close. We are good friends. We care about each other. And that has been facilitated mainly through a virtual experience on Zoom. So I know that you miss seeing each other in person, but there are ways over time that you can create unique ways to cultivate that kind of collegiality and team spirit, I guess. So the other thing is, I want to encourage you to be creative. Do not think that you need to do stuff the way things have always been done. If there's any time that teaches us that, it's now. So our team last week, we did a walking meeting, socially distant. We have dogs, some of us. And so if we were going to go on our dog walk, we took our team meeting on the phone, and I set up Otter, which is a thing that allows you to record a conversation and it automatically transcribes it. And so we had, Otter set up to take notes while we were out on our team meeting. You just figure it out, right? We also, one of Anna, Dr. Anna Drake-Warshaw on our team meets and does virtual co-working with one of our former fellows, where they just are on Zoom together and they're not talking, but they're just co-working. Because sometimes it's very helpful to have that kind of buzz environment that we no longer get to have. So I would say focus on the experience that has been most useful for you to get into a flow state, and also what kinds of things that you really miss that you need to figure out a new solution. So focus on the problem and really get curious about it and lean into it. Don't assume that you know the solution. Don't feel like you have to use any one of these solutions. Just feel like you have some flexibility. The other piece I want to encourage you to do is you got to rethink your schedule. So the meetings that were planned for March are not necessarily the meetings you should probably still be having in some respects. I am really appreciating that my team is having us, we have some really exciting new stuff that we're working on that needs to happen no matter what. And right now I want to just why are we doing this? Why aren't we just focusing on triage? Why aren't we focusing on helping to raise more money for emergency grants, which is what we're trying to do? And it's still helpful for us to have those kind of forward-thinking conversations to remember the big priorities. So I would say take a look at your calendar, rethink what needs to be done. There are some things that need to go. And frankly, who should be included in conversations should probably change, because now you're in a virtual environment. So perhaps my assistant needs to be a part of all conversations so that I make sure there's follow through, because I can't pop my head out and chat with them about follow up, because I'm usually booked back to back. So just don't let what is on the calendar determine your life for the next month. You need to find a way to incorporate play and fun. We did a dance break the other day, whatever, memes, Snapchat, whatever needs a group happy hour. Like, but I tell you that, like, in a moment of scarcity and fear, people need the endorphin release and like cortisol reduction of fun and play. And I know that seems like the furthest thing from your mind, but it's really important, because people cannot be innovative, they cannot be creative if they don't feel safe. And we have to figure out ways to make people feel safe and, frankly, also distract in a positive way. So there are new healthy ways to come up with playful things your team can do, healthy competition. You know, we don't have the Final Four to create brackets, but there's some folks who are creating ones on now that are like YouTube videos that are the funniest, and you're like competing them against each other. Whatever. Just, this is not a time to be super business like obsessed and be just, you know, you're going to be a robot all day. This is a time where I'm finding people are being more themselves at work. And I think that's something to be grateful for, because, you know, I'm in that meeting with you and I just saw your dog walk through the frame. I can see that your closet is also messy because it's right behind you. You know, I mean, we're all going through this really weird moment. And so I think as leaders, do not polish up. This is a place where you need to create social safety for vulnerability and conversations that are hard, but play and fun, super important. Figure out what works for your team. Transitions. So people who work from home really struggle with this. In particular, as you all have now learned, which is, you know, how do I actually, you know, like 5 o'clock, like last week, I worked until midnight a couple nights in a row because my partner's a firefighter. So if he's at the station, I don't have any other social cue because I don't leave and come back. There's no longer the social cues to help me kind of turn off. And so you want to kind of help your team with that. So what I'm doing is I've created a channel that's just for my West Coast peeps and my East Coast team. And I'm trying to check in and just like, hey, hope you had a great day. You know, hey, just saying goodbye, you know, so that they kind of have a feeling of a sense of, oh yeah, I got to remember, I got to check out. But again, that's part of my checking in. I would say be flexible. This one, I don't know what to tell you, just like there is no hard and fast, there are no rules. I think that people right now, their productivity has been affected because there is this tremendous distraction and you cannot expect people to be doing exactly what they were planning on doing 6 months ago or 3 months ago. So just be as flexible as possible with folks. And I really appreciate that lots of folks are reaching out about things and funders are saying, hey, we're good and don't worry about this report, or et cetera. So I think that in general, just with your team, be as flexible as possible. The last piece is reframing prompts. I find that starting conversations with what's helping you, or here's what's something that you're finding despite all of this to be grateful for in this moment. You know, you can find all kinds of ways to reframe the conversation. I just think that it's very difficult to be part of a conversation right now where it's not just passing anxiety between us. And so anything that you can do as a leader to model the kinds of conversations that will help kind of bring people up out of this, the better you're going to have your team be able to support you and the more they're going to feel connected. So I would just end with thanks so much for the time that we're having today. I want to encourage you to share what's helping you. And I will say, to answer that for me is purpose, trying to lean into purpose in this moment. So I'm finding, you know, the things that people ask me for, that's my purpose for right now. People are asking, you know, hey, how can you help us be able to transition online? That's not my expertise. But what I am good at is being curious and finding people who know smart stuff and asking them questions, or trying to raise money for our campuses for emergency grants. Whatever it is that people are asking you for right now, that is the thing that you can lean into for purpose in this moment. Because some of us, our jobs have become very different very quickly. I also think, you know, creating community wherever I can is something I'm leaning into as a purpose. And despite all of this going on, that's a super helpful way to, you know, figure out how to navigate and to keep your head straight. So my hope is this is helpful for you. Anything I said that didn't work for you, totally ignore it. Anything that works for you, cool, use it. But my hope is that you will share with others what's useful for you, especially leading your teams in this difficult time. Thank you so much for taking the time today, and I look forward to hearing what is working for you.